I would say my battle has really been a lifelong battle. It was probably around the time that I turned 13 that my mother took me to a diet doctor, and I would lose the weight. And then at one point, I would somehow think I was normal again. And I would take that first bite. That set me on a path where I could not stop.
Hey friends, today's topic with special guest Karol Joseph is a powerful one, and that is addiction. Many of us know someone who is addicted to something, and that person could even be the one watching this video. In a world that saturates our minds with indulgences and temptation, it's easy to understand how we can so easily slip into addiction and into patterns of destructive behavior. So first and foremost, if you're struggling with addiction, you are not alone and there is a way out. Karol Joseph, Master's in Missiology with an emphasis on Jewish studies, will be talking with us today about her battle with addiction and how her addiction was overcome in a way that you may not have expected. Hey, Karol, it's great having you here.
Thank you. Really good to be here.
Yeah, so if you've missed Karol's testimony, which is spectacular, you can watch it here on the channel. But today we're discussing addiction and how not only you were able to overcome it, but how others can overcome addiction and the destruction it brings with it. So, Karol, share with us your battle and what happened that helped you overcome it.
So my battle I would say my battle has really been a lifelong battle that started when I was very young, and like many of my generation and beyond, how we look, being thin, caring about your appearance is very important. And I was always the one in my family who struggled with weight. And so as far back almost as I can remember, my family tells funny stories about me and my relationship with food. But it was probably around the time that I turned 13 that my mother took me to a diet doctor and began my journey along pills, fad diets, one after another after another. I've always been a very disciplined person, I think. Maybe that's not completely true, but disciplined enough that I was very, very good at dieting. I could diet with the best of them, and I would lose the weight. And then at one point, I would somehow think I was normal again. And I would take that first bite. I remember actually very vividly one day walking in the airport waiting for somebody to arrive and thinking nobody here knows. They just look at me and think I'm a normal, healthy eater. And I can eat whatever I want and be normal and healthy and thin. And I took that bite, and as often is the case, that set me on a path where I could not stop. And I gained all the weight back and then some, until the point that I would kind of somehow mustered the strength to try it again. But there was this roller coaster of weight gain, weight loss, try the next thing.
Yeah.
Well, repeat. And every time I began to know that this was a really dangerous thing for my health over time, that even the yo-yo was more difficult than the overeating in terms of the long-term health effects. And I was powerless over it. I knew that because you can try it. You can try to stop on your own strength, and you find out pretty quickly that you can't. And it was when I was in my mid-30s that I began to go to a 12-step program for eating disorders. And it was there that I actually re-encountered in a very practical way with the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the God of my youth, who I had never abandoned or denied, but I didn't really have conversations with God in any kind of regular or natural way until this illness brought me to my knees and I began to ask God for help. And I went to a program that encouraged me first to admit that I had a problem, to recognize that I was not going to be able to fix myself, but that if I could so the first step says, admitted that I was powerless over blank and my life had become unmanageable. A lot of us know that we're powerless, but it's the point where your life is spinning out of control. That's the point that usually gets our attention to take an action. And the second step is came to believe that a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity. And nobody needed to tell me that I was insane. The kinds of things that I was doing around food, I knew was not a normal, healthy thing to do.
Yeah.
And I never had a problem believing that God existed. But if I could come to believe, and I love when people say first they came, they just showed up. Then they came to, they put down their drug and got sober. And then they came to believe. Because as soon as I began to ask God for help, he answered that prayer in ways that to me were like the parting of the Red Sea. That's the only way I can describe it.
Right.
Because,
If I may interject just a second, when I came to faith as well, he took from me the thing that I needed him most to take from me, and relieved me of that. It was the thing that I was battling with the most for 2 decades. So I relate to what you're saying.
Yes. Well, the story is still a long and winding road, though, and I'll explain that in a little bit. But when I got on my knees, and Jewish girls don't get on their knees to pray. That's what Catholics do when they go into church and they get on, then they kneel. But it was something that I was encouraged to do as a statement of humility before God. And I became willing to believe that he could restore me to sanity. And I made that decision to turn my will and my life over to the care of God, praying only for knowledge of his will and power to carry it out. That was my prayer every day and continues to this day, not every single day, but to be a part of my regular practice. Because it's not God, give me power so that I can go do my own will. It's give me power to know your will and power to do it. Because he does for me what I am not able to do for myself, but not always what I am able to do for myself.
Yeah, and coming to that realization is so important for people in their lifetime, that first of all, you don't have to do everything on your own.
Correct.
The concept of my own power and the focus these days on self-help, I think, is crushing to people, because in the beginning it feels empowering, but over time it becomes a burden, a heavy, heavy burden of I have to do this all on my own. And if I mess up, if I do it wrong, I have to do it again. I have to start over, and maybe I've just wasted 10 years and it's a huge burden.
That's so true. I really completely understand and resonate with that statement. So I got on my knees and I said, God, show me your will for me and give me the power to do it. And I promise I'll do it no matter what. And the first day I just said, can you take away the compulsion to eat flour and sugar? Those were my drugs. And I wasn't going to ask him to help me control the quantity or the frequency of eating, just no flour, no sugar. And he did. And at the end of the day, I truly felt like I'd crossed the Red Sea, because I knew that I could not do that on my own. Every day I asked for that and could not do that. I said, okay, Karol, you're going to do this today.
Right.
And I would fail by 10 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, you put up the sticky notes on your mirror, tie the thing around your finger. You set the reminders on your phone or whatever. Maybe you didn't have a smartphone then, but
we didn't have phones. But yes, all of those things. And so that gave me that mustard seed of faith to get on my knees the next day and do it again. And God did it again. And days turned to weeks and weeks turned to months. And my relationship with God was renewed. And I was abstinent from flour and sugar. And I won't tell you that I've been abstinent ever since. This is over 30 years ago. I've had relapses as a believer. But whenever I would go back and ask God for help, he would be there and waiting for me, kind of like the prodigal son, coming back and running into the arms of the Father again. But I will say that I've been abstinent from flour and sugar since 1998. And I need to share this for those of you that are struggling, because God literally lifted it. he took it away. It isn't there anymore. And 3 years ago, at the beginning, 3 years ago, a friend of mine had challenged me and a group to take to fast. And I said, I have an eating disorder. I can't fast. But I began to pray and I said, God, is there something that I can give up for this season to contribute to this effort? Mm-hmm. And I let go of artificially sweetened drinks and sugarless gum. And that was not going to be easy for me to do. And I asked God for help and he took it away. And it's now 3 years later. And I have not had either one. And I say that to the glory of God because he is powerful. And
yes, absolutely. So would eating the artificially sweetened things be similar to like an alcoholic would drink a non-alcoholic beer or something, and it would kind of remind them of what they can no longer have, but it still gives them a sense that they're drinking the thing?
I think not exactly, but yes.
Okay.
Because I know that. And for me, I don't eat flour and sugar, and I can't tell you how many people try to give me recipes for flourless, sugarless cake. And I go, if it looks like it, if it tastes, if it feels like it.
It doesn't work out.
It doesn't work for me.
I got to be honest with you. I've been off of sugar and flour for a long time because I can't handle it. It gives me horrible headaches and really severe irritability and even borderline depression. For some reason, it affects the chemistry in my brain so badly and so powerfully that I can hardly function. And when I take it out, I feel fine, but I'm missing so many different foods. Like, I don't want to stop eating them, but I have to because it hurts when I do. And so I've been off of sugar and flour for quite some, sugar for about 5-6 years, and flour for the last year or so. And it's been hard. It's been really hard, but
ask God for help.
yeah, I do. And the thing is, I do. And it's funny because some people say, how can you be happy when we're here at a restaurant, everybody's eating whatever they want, and you have this little portion of tasteless whatever you're eating? And I say, you know what? I don't necessarily enjoy food as much as I used to, but God has given me the joy of life. He's filled me up with his spirit. And so my happiness is not dependent upon my circumstantial experiences anymore. So he's given me that, and he's given me the ability to stay strong meal after meal at dinner tables and restaurants, when I'm surrounded by all these temptations.
Great. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And I feel the exact same way. I mean, if it weren't for my eating disorder, I may never have encountered Jesus.
Right.
And I know so many people who struggle with diabetes today and who have so many health issues that are directly related back to flour and sugar, that I love the freedom that I have to not eat it.
Yeah, exactly. And how have you been able to affect anybody else with regards to their struggles and addictions?
Oh, yeah.
Through your testimony?
Yes, a lot. And because so many people today have addictions.
Yes.
By many different names. Right. And it all goes back to the same thing. So I'm constantly reminding people that God is real, that he hears, that he helps, that he is all powerful, and we are not, and we never will be.
Right. It's hard for people to give up that kind of control and how they see themselves. There's one thing I wanted to ask you, because you mentioned coming to find God once again through the 12-step program. Now, how do you know, how did you know that it was the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? Because I know that the narrative in the 12-step program is different. It's the God of your own understanding, but yet, how did you know it was the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and that was the correct God?
That's such a perfect question. I couldn't have even asked that better, because that was not originally the idea in 12 Steps today.
Yeah.
was never pick any God you like.
Right.
When the text reads, the God of your understanding, it's acknowledging that we don't come to know all about God all at once. We come to know him. And I know God better today after being a believer in Jesus for 33 years or 4 years than I knew day one. But there is one God, and I knew that from the get-go. There was never a time where I believed that there were many gods. I knew the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I knew the testimony of the Hebrew scriptures. I knew once I began to read the New Testament, it even made more sense because I didn't understand everything in the Hebrew scriptures until I read the New Testament.
Wow,
and
great point.
All the puzzle pieces came into focus. And those books are different than any other book that's been written or any other testimony about another God. So I knew it was never a question for me, but I did want to clarify that historically, the 12 steps were not about polytheism.
Right.
The 12 steps were written recognizing that most of the people coming in did not have a faith in God yet at all. And so you come to know him slowly, but surely.
Well, that's great. There was one more thing that I wanted to end on, and that is, first of all, thank you for your transparency in sharing that with the audience, because I think one of the most difficult things for people to do is actually admit that they have a problem. It was only when I cried up to whoever I thought was up there saying, I have no idea what I'm doing anymore. That was when everything started to be revealed to me, when God actually said, now I have somebody that I can work with. And so if somebody's out there watching this and they're struggling right now and they want help, what would you say to them?
I would say the best is yet to come. You're in that place where you're ready. And if you're ready, go online, find resources, call us, connect with me or anybody else that can help you, because that's what faith is, and that's what program is. One person helping the next person to find what they found.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Karol, so much for sharing that, and may this touch people's lives.
Amen.
To find out more about Karol Joseph and her work, click on the link below in the description and stay tuned for our next episode where Karol will be discussing why Jewish people need Jesus if they have the law of Moses. It will be fascinating. To find out more about Jews for Jesus, you can visit us and even chat with us anonymously at our website, jewsforjesus.org. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, and may you all find peace and hope in our Messiah, Yeshua.